So we're up in Maine, and longtime friends who have been coming to this gathering for how many years, Barry?
'07 was my first year.
07?
15
You're a
years.
tenured professor.
Yeah,
here,
absolutely.
And Peter?
I would say I'm probably nearing 10, maybe.
10 years.
Yeah.
My gosh. Wonderful. Well, for those who don't know, please tell everybody who you are. There may be one or two people on the planet that don't know you.
There are lots.
Barry Ritholtz.
There are
Introduce
lots of
yourself.
people who don't know, and I'm Barry Ritholtz. I'm Chairman and Chief Investment Officer at Ritholtz Wealth Management. I host a podcast at Bloomberg called Masters in Business, and have been writing about markets and the economy for Bloomberg, for Washington Post, for the blog, The Big Picture.
And you've had people from this gathering on your podcast. I know
God.
I've been there. Peter's been there, right?
I want to say
he never got you?
Because I'm connected to CNBC, so.
Oh my God.
so. He has a conflict, but I would love to have Peter. I want to say I've had, I don't know, 15 people from Camp Kotok. Everyone from Paul McCulley to David Rosenberg to,
all the gangsters.
Go down the list. Right.
All the gangsters.
Right.
Yeah.
Dave
So-
Nottig.
Oh, all right.
Just a run of gangsters.
Peter, tell everybody.
Constant Hunter is another one.
Well, there you go. So, Peter, tell everybody who you are.
Peter Boockvar. I'm the Chief Investment Officer with Bleakley Financial Group, which is a New Jersey-based wealth management firm. And I'm the editor and writer for the Book Report, a daily macroeconomic market missive that I write.
Now, Booker, you better, but spell it for them because they'll look it up. They hear it.
Report.com as a play on my last name.
All right. So we got
Strong endorsed, by the way.
3 minutes. No. We're all on the same side. We don't take sides up here. We're all on the same side. So last night we got 2-3 minutes. Last night we sat in the tannery room. Had Kathy Mann, Bank of England, Jim Bianco. Brandon, I think.
Yeah, Brandon Zick.
And Sam
Rhines.
And then the participant, Dave Burson. And then it went on for a while.
And Peter Boockvar.
And Peter, you were in it.
I closed it.
Yeah. So maybe you can spend a minute, tell viewers the takeaway. They don't want to hear me. They want to hear from you guys. They don't want to hear me.
Well, I think Catherine laid out the challenge that, from her angle, being on the Bank of England, of managing monetary policy in an inflationary environment, how to calibrate rates, which is what they can control in this kind of situation, and will it be enough to temper inflation? At what point will we get back to that elusive 2% that all the world central banks have as a target? And I think that was sort of the thesis for Jim's topic, was when do we get back to 2%? And I think the answer was clear, that it's not so clear of when that will be, and that there could be structural reasons that will take longer than not. I'm in that camp that it's going to take time to get back to 2%, and that we have to sort of live in this sort of new, higher inflationary environment, albeit at a much lower pace than we're currently seeing.
Yeah. So Barry,
I like that.
Your interview, I mean, it sounded good? It sounded good?
That sounded good.
When do we get back to 2%?
So my attitude is, I don't know, nobody else does. To pretend that we can really project this is something that leads to people making errors in their process, because this is really a case of first impression. A lot of this, Peter's point last night was, a lot of the things that are driving inflation are not interest rate sensitive, right, unless you really crash the whole economy into a bad
Are you
recession.
willing to say that the central bank is fighting an inflation, and maybe they caused some of it a year or two ago, but there are other forces that are non-monetary forces that are very strong? So is it a fair characterization?
No, I'm going to push back on that, because this is, as much as the great financial crisis and the response were primarily monetary, the pandemic panic and the response has been massively fiscal. The first CARES Act was the biggest fiscal stimulus relative to GDP.
Yeah.
All told, about $5 trillion. Hey, guess what? We're a service-based economy that suddenly shifted to a goods-based economy, and here's $1 trillion. Go buy all the toilet paper you need.
Well, so here's the other side of a question. We now have a war, shooting war, spreading, it's expanding, it's in Europe. We have a worldwide financial payment sanctions war.
Sure.
U.S. is the leader in the war. Does that change, Peter maybe first, does that change your thinking in terms of outlook?
Well, you mean in terms of what the Fed will do, or just generally speaking?
But getting not centric and focused on 75 or 50 for the next meeting, but a 30,000 strategic view. Because let's look over a year or two, assuming the Moscow monster is what we see him to be, and that's not going to change.
Right. Well, I think structurally, take Europe for example, they're the ones that are feeling it the most with Putin in terms of their reliance on Russian energy. And so there's going to be a whole reset of how they source energy. And the U.S. is going to be a beneficiary as we become the dominant exporter of liquefied natural gas. I think with the U.S. economy, we talk about the Fed and the inflation it created, it's really in housing. And they've made housing unaffordable for many people in this country. So a cooling of home prices, I think, would actually be a good thing for the economy. It would help first-time home buyers and would create a much easier financial situation. Yeah, if I got to pay $5 a gallon of gasoline instead of $4, that hurts. But if my home prices are up 40%, the inflation in housing makes the price of gasoline nothing in terms of its global, in terms of its national impact on cost of living.
Okay, so one more question, but Barry, war, financial sanctions war, payments war, U.S. is in the leading role in an alliance. We have a lineup forming of the bad guys. We see their photos when they visit each other. Where do you think this goes? War.
So I can hope that this doesn't spill out of the Ukraine into Eastern Europe, which is the big concern.
Yeah.
It's bad that Russia has invaded a former Soviet-era Russian state, and now, they've been a free nation for as long as they've been. It's terrible just contained there. Imagine how much worse it is if it spills out to neighboring countries.
So you met General Gray, who's up here. And we're doing this military preparedness national security series in Sarasota, and we'll do another round of it next year. And he'll tell you, and General Breedlove, who retired as Supreme Allied Commander Europe, will tell you, this gets bigger and more serious.
So the really interesting thing...
And by the way, they'll also tell you the defense budget, instead of the record $800 billion that is just passed, should be $1.2 trillion. Right. So where do you get the $400 billion? That's another issue.
So here's the thing that the sort of subtext here that I alluded to before, but I'll be explicit. The decision-making process that people, investors, governments, alliances go through is fraught because you're making these probabilistic decisions, and it's always interesting with the benefit of hindsight to go back and look, and it's like, wait, they just invaded Crimea 5 years ago. Why would you be so tied to them in terms of gas or energy or whatever? It's always interesting to look at the decision-making process, not to say you were wrong, but to say, what did we learn from this experience, and how can we avoid these sorts of errors going forward?
Last word. Do we ever learn from any experiences, or do we just repeat it over and over?
We just repeat it over, thinking there'll be a different result. And just one quick thing, the China-Taiwan thing, I think where that goes, economically speaking, will affect every part of the world, not just Europe, as Ukraine and Russia mostly impact.
Do we think that that's going to become another Russia-Ukraine?
Oh, let's hold that one. Let's hold that one for tonight in a fireside chat, or tomorrow night. No, you're doing a panel tomorrow on long COVID.
Right.
And Peter, you were involved in Fed policy, and today we were out on the water and we did a little fishing and we renewed some old friendships and new ones.
Yeah, always
So we'll say goodbye. Peter Boockvar, I have to say it correctly, and Barry Ritholtz, famous outdoorsman, learned his outdoor skills in Central Park till he came up here. He thought he got fish at Zabar's, but that's now all changed. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice to be
David.
here.
Thank you.